Hi Chris, thanks for sending us your video. Made some notes here with good stuff there, which is great to see. I'm guessing by the sound of it, it sounds like pretty much a stock bike. You do what I call short shifting, which is changing up early in the rev range when the bike's kind of accelerating on a straight, and there's very often absolutely no need for it. There is a time to short shift, and again we'll talk about that, and Donington is a great example for this. Two places you short shift at Donington. You need to use more throttle, and that sounds terribly obvious. Throttle and RPM are completely different things. Your bike puts out, for argument's sake, a little over 200 horsepower at sort of 13,500 RPM, but often you'll be revving the bike quite high, and I can just tell by the sound, by the lack of induction noise, that you're revving the bike but you haven't got the throttle open, and I can tell also by the fact that how quickly RPM rises and falls, what the throttle is or isn't doing. So we need to physically get the throttle open more and combine that with RPM, and it changes the bike quite dramatically. We're going to start the lap from on the time bar on 4:36, and it was going to focus on this lap as an example of a short shift. You come out of Goddard's, you've got the throttle on, it's not buried, but you've got the throttle on, and you sort of wait till the bike almost crosses the start finish line before you really open the throttle hard and you do a short shift. After that, you can hear the induction note change and the revs climb really quickly, which is a great indication for me that you've got the taps open at that point. So let's have a watch. So you short shifted there. The 12 was just about to come on. For me, that was a bit of a short shift. Do you hear that? That sort of deeper tone. That tells me that the butterflies are really all the carb, basically, you call them carburetors, but the injectors are fully open when you get that second sort of noise coming up through the tank. And that's kind of what you want to hear when the bike's obviously in a straight line. So it's a really good strong blast down to turn one. You're moving over to the left hand side of the track, exactly the right sort of timing. Pretty good brakes on the approach. Start to tip in fractionally early. I use this line, which is the end of the blend line where the pit lane kind of finishes. So you've started a slightly early tip in into the corner. It's quite dramatic, the approach to Redgate, because you've gone pretty fast and the track kind of just disappears on you. So I can kind of see where that comes from. But try and hang out. You can see this section of the track is quite clean, quite clear, because that really is the racing line. So you want to sort of aim for this portion of the track, and just when you're about here, you start to tip in. So by the time you get to that line, you've already started to lean slightly. Now, here's one thing about the recordings. If you can, if your camera has the facility to turn off the stabilization or to go into a different setting, because you'll see the image as it were on the screen, and you'll see the bike kind of moving around underneath you, and it's the algorithms in the camera trying to kind of smooth it all out. And it's one of the reasons when you on the crash video bit, the second video where you crash, that it looks like you're well, we'll talk about it in more detail, but it's difficult to tell exactly what you're doing with the bike, because the image that you see and what the bike's doing is slightly different. But again, we'll go to that into more detail a bit later. So I've wrote down here, acceleration past the pits, really good. Bit of a short shift early on there, braking okay. And I think here you could do with hanging on to the brakes a little bit longer, more of a trail, because as you turn in, there's quite a long time of sort of deceleration, and you run ever so slightly wide away from the apex. The service road here, which is just sort of in this section of the track, this section is where the service road comes up from your right. The apex, you can just see the curb there as that bit of a dink in it. So I'd like to try and get the bike kind of here. And your bike, by comparison, is probably only maybe 3 or 4 feet away from that apex. But if you can imagine the line that you draw around the corner, you're going to lose that 3 or 4 feet on the edge of the track, on the drift out. It's like you've made the track automatically 3 or 4 feet wide, narrower than it really is. It's particularly important for your exit of a corner that you make apexes, because the apex, you can define exactly where you are on the track. It also gives you trajectory. If you make the apex but the bike's kind of pointing down there, that's not so good, because you're going to almost certainly run really wide. So the further you can get the bike round the corner, the better you can get the bike pointing up the track, as it were, at the apex. That just gives you much more of an open, a bigger, broader section of the track to use on the coming out.